The seven Chiranjivis are bound by eternal life, but we are separated by what that life means. 6 are guardians, blessed for their virtue. I am the wanderer, cursed for my vice. Their stories inspire devotion and courage. Mine is a stark warning. Power without dharma leads to a living hell. There's a mantra people chant for health and long life. Ashwatthama Balir Vyaso Hanumanascha Vibhishana Kripacharya Cha Parashurama Saptaita Chiranjivina. It lists all 7 of us. When they say my name, do they remember the lesson? Do they remember that I, Ashwatthama, am not a figure of glory, but a symbol of everlasting consequence? I walk among you, a shadow bearing a wound that will never close, waiting for the end of time to finally grant me the peace that my immortality denies. While the other Chiranjivis continue their divine roles, Ashwatthama wanders. Legends place him in forests, near ancient forts, along the banks of sacred rivers. Stories speak of offerings appearing mysteriously, of a wounded ascetic vanishing without trace. These are not claims of glory, but echoes of consequence. In Hindu cosmology, Kali Yuga will one day end. Kalki will appear. Dharma will be restored. Whether Ashwatthama's suffering ends then is left to interpretation. What remains certain is the lesson his life embodies. Immortality without righteousness is not a blessing. Power without restraint becomes destruction. A long life without inner peace is the greatest punishment imaginable. Among the 7 immortals, Ashwatthama stands not as an inspiration, but as a reminder that every action, especially those born of rage, carries weight beyond time. He walks not to be worshipped, but to be remembered. The Kurukshetra war, it was a whirlwind of right and wrong, loyalty and betrayal. I fought with all the might my father had taught me, a fierce warrior, loyal to my friend Duryodhana. I was a Maharathi, a commander who could face thousands of warriors alone. I battled Bhima, Arjuna, and the best of the Pandava forces, proving my strength again and again. But the turning point, the moment my heart filled with a rage that would swallow me whole, came on the 15th day. The Pandavas, desperate to defeat my invincible father, cooked up a cruel lie. They killed an elephant also named Ashwatthama and had Yudhishthira, the very symbol of truth, cry out, "Ashwatthama is dead!" Hearing those words from Yudhishthira's lips, my father believed his son, me, was gone. He dropped his weapons, shattered by grief, and sat in meditation right there on the battlefield. It was then that Drishtadyumna, the commander of the Pandava army, committed the most disgusting act of war. He beheaded my unarmed, grieving father. In that moment, the warrior in me died, and a monster was born. My grief curdled into an all-consuming fire. I saw the celebrations in the Pandava camp, and I vowed revenge. I promised my dying friend Duryodhana that I would bring him the heads of the Pandavas, that I would make them feel the same pain that had just shattered my world. My path wasn't about victory anymore. It was about pure, unfiltered vengeance. On the 18th night, after the war was officially over, I refused to let the Pandavas have their victory party. With the only other surviving Kaurava warriors, my uncle Kripacharya and Kritavarma, I planned something so dark it would stain my soul for eternity. I stood before the Pandava camp. Inside, soldiers were sleeping, unsuspecting, believing the war was done. Fueled by a rage that burned hotter than any funeral pyre, I prayed to Lord Shiva. I offered myself as a sacrifice, and he, seeing the raw fury inside me, granted me a divine sword and temporarily empowered me. I became an agent of total destruction. I stormed the camp alone. In the dead of night, I unleashed hell. I slaughtered the sleeping warriors without an ounce of mercy. I found my father's killer, Drishtadyumna, and instead of a warrior's death, I beat and choked him, avenging Drona's dishonorable end with an equally brutal one. I hunted down the 5 sons of Draupadi, and in my blind rage, I mistook them for the 5 Pandava brothers. I killed them as they slept, believing I was keeping my promise to Duryodhana. It was a massacre, an act of pure evil. I had attacked defenseless men and killed innocent children in their sleep. The war was over, but I had committed a sin that went far beyond the rules of combat. I had become a butcher, and my actions that night set the stage for my eternal damnation. When dawn broke and the Pandavas discovered the carnage, their grief turned into a righteous fury. They hunted me down and found me at the ashram of the sage Vyasa. Cornered and outnumbered, I did the unthinkable. I summoned the most powerful and destructive weapon known to man, the Brahmashirastra. I channeled it into a single blade of grass and unleashed it, aiming to wipe out the entire Pandava family line forever. Arjuna, guided by Lord Krishna, fired his own Brahmashirastra to counter mine. If those 2 weapons had collided, they would have destroyed the world. The great sage Vyasa appeared, stopping the celestial weapons mid-air and ordering us both to withdraw them. Arjuna, a master of his power, recalled his. But I, who had the knowledge without the discipline, couldn't. The weapon had to have a target. In one last desperate act of spite, I redirected its energy toward the womb of Uttara, Arjuna's daughter-in-law. She was carrying the last heir of the Pandava line, the unborn Parikshit. It was then that Lord Krishna stepped forward, his calm hiding a divine rage. He used his Sudarshana Chakra to neutralize the weapon and miraculously revived the lifeless child in Uttara's womb. Then he turned his eyes on me, and with a voice that sealed my fate, he spoke his curse. He didn't sentence me to death. No, that would have been a mercy. Instead, he ripped the divine gem from my forehead, leaving a gaping, festering wound that would never heal, oozing blood and pus for all time. And then he spoke the words that have haunted every single step I've taken for millennia. You are a coward, a child slayer, a sinner with no honor, he declared. For your crimes, you will roam this earth for 3,000 years. You will wander alone, shunned by all, with the stench of your weeping sores following you. You will cry for death, but death will not find you. Your immortality, your birthright, will now be your eternal penance.